I imagine if you were a kid in the early 2000s, much like myself, you may have watched Yu-Gi-Oh! GX and been like, damn, I wish I could go to Duel Academy, without realizing how completely unrealistic an academy built entirely around learning a children's card game really was. 2 decades later and I'm beginning to understand why this was necessary. But as someone who worked as a teacher, I started to wonder if Duel Academy was a viable option as your choice in education, provided you were in the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! Then I thought about it for more than an hour and came to the realization that not only is it a bad idea, it is also horrifically illegal to have this school even operate. I don't care if Kuiper has the money to build an incredibly impractical and unnecessary dragon-shaped jet, you can't build a school on the burial site of multiple evil gods. Keep in mind that I'll be judging the school based on the British Office Standards for Education, Children's Services and Skill, or Ofsted for short. No, I don't know how that acronym works. This is because I'm British and it's what I've grown up knowing. If you want to make your own video on the same topic based on Japanese law, then be my guest. Originally I was going to use Ofsted's grading scale for public schools, which ranks schools based on quality of education, behavior and attitudes, personal development, and leadership management, but Duel Academy isn't a public school, it's a boarding school, where students live on campus 24/7 aside from some holidays. Conveniently, Ofsted have a national minimum standard for boarding schools as well, which is a short 37 pages long. Don't let anyone tell you I don't do my research. The categories we'll be judging Duel Academy on are Governance and Leadership and Management, which focuses on the staff to ensure that they're doing their job properly and not discriminating. Living conditions, ensuring living spaces are adequate. Health and well-being, knowing that the school has proper medical facilities and protocol is properly laid out. Safeguarding, which ensures that students are kept away from danger and are protected. And health and safety, to ensure that the area that the school is based in is safe. The astute among you may notice that I have missed off 2 at the end, which is boarding rights and off-site accommodation, but since none of this is ever made apparent in the show, we're going to assume that all students know their rights and they have off-site accommodations. So, how does Duel Academy stack up then? Oh no.
I have a PhD in dueling. I've earned the title doctor, thank you.
Let's talk about our teachers then, starting with the general teaching staff and working our way up. Miss Fontaine is who I wanted to start with since she's a PE teacher, but she is going to come up later again in this video. She occasionally makes fairly inappropriate comments to students in the video games, but other than that she hasn't committed any crimes. Yes, crimes. Unless you count the time where she violated the Hippocratic Oath, but she was being possessed by an intersex demon with a sadism kink, and there's no legislation about that. So I don't really know what I meant to do here. On to Mr. Stein then. He needs to review his pedagogy a bit. During the actual university days, they would lecture us about all sorts, but mainly how you can more effectively teach by gaining an understanding of the class's knowledge. If any of my former students happen to be watching this, feel free to tell me how well or tragic I did in that regard. Mr. Stein seems to just resort to asking a question and repeating, anyone, 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 until he gives up and moves on. This is not an interactive learning environment where students are going to learn. This would be more of a problem if he wasn't going to be arrested first. Season 3 is where we really get introduced to him as a character, with 2 full episodes while he duels Jaden. According to Mr. Stein, Jaden would usually sleep through his classes or just not show up altogether. Due to him being a top student, this apparently had an effect on the other students around him. So other students would stop coming to class, and I guess this is a perfect excuse for pedicide, the crime of murdering a minor. I'm probably going to be put on a watch list after this video. Your watch list, that is, when you like and subscribe, and a government one as well. Unlike most characters in the series, Stein is fully aware of what the biobands do and is fully ready to milk Jaden for all the energy he's worth, subsequently killing him. I'd say fire him if he wasn't already dead after falling into one of GX's many bottomless pits. Moving up the chain of command, we have the head of Slifer Red, Professor Banner, who is a teacher of dual alchemy, which makes about as much sense as attack point quantum mechanics. Someone needs to tell this guy that when we say rarity bumping, we don't mean turning gold rares into platinum rares. Banner is a pretty chill guy, generally very friendly, good teacher, a mentor to the Slifer Reds. It's a real shame he's also a terrorist. During Season 1, spoilers if you happen to be in 2004 and still watching the Shadow Riders arc, Banner was revealed to be the 7th Shadow Rider. He assassinates 3 students and puts them in space jail before his duel with Jaden, where he reveals he made an entire new body using alchemy. I would say he fails on standard 2.2 on account of blowing himself up all the time, but I think he knows what he's doing. The duel devolves into gaslighting Jaden before revealing that he was lying and that he did all of it to test Jaden to ensure he's prepared to fight the Sacred Beast. The thing is, if Jaden won, he wouldn't ever need to fight the Sacred Beast unless he predicted that Chaz would accidentally awaken them. And if he lost, he wouldn't be able to fight the Sacred Beast because he would also be in space jail. Regardless of the outcome of this test, Jaden doesn't ever fight the Sacred Beast, and that honestly shows Banner's poor ability to plan effectively, which should go against him if he wasn't...
Professor Banner!
Yeah, that. So, the head of Raw Yellow, Mr. Satir, who does absolutely nothing wrong. Mr. Satir does something maybe 3 times in the entire series, once during a Raw Yellow welcome dinner, once during an art class, and once when he took the role of a food-themed superhero to try and bring people back to the Yellow Dorm. In his defense, everyone was joining a cult at the time. Mr. Satir is quite literally the only teacher who isn't guilty of some kind of crime and actually properly teaches his students, so I have nothing to say about him. So Bonaparte commits the worst crimes out of all the general teaching staff at the school. He's short and French. Bonaparte appeared in season 2, taking the vice-chancellor role away from Crowler, along with the majority of their personality traits, such as not liking the Red Dorm and not liking the Red Dorm. As he is a very smart man, he decides the best way to up the school's averages is to just get rid of the Red Dorm, which is called off-rolling, and it is very illegal. When that doesn't work, he just hires a demolition crew to hack away at the building during a duel between him and Crowler. He doesn't even check if there's anyone in the building, he just tells the machine operator to go at it. If Crowler had lost, anyone in the Red Dorm could have been severely injured or killed. This is going down in the report as Colte Francis. Speaking of Crowler, they have a PhD in dueling, and probably teaches something like duel theory, which does sound useless, but in the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's basically a professional sport, so it's kind of like teaching sport theory. On top of that, they are the head of Obelisk Blue and the vice-chancellor turned chancellor in season 2. They're iconic, so in my book that immediately excuses them of the many crimes they have committed. To start with, they rigged entrance exams because Jaden was slightly late, and upon being defeated, conspired to have Jaden expelled in a multitude of ways. They actively bully and propagate the bullying of Slifer Red students. All the stuff that Bonaparte was saying about how the Red Dorm is dragging down the grades and making the school look bad is exactly the stuff Crowler was saying in the first half of season 1, often openly to the students. So all that is bad and can probably constitute the loss of a teaching license, but it's not inherently criminal. It gets worse. Crowler has rigged other matches intentionally to put students in danger or to try and get them expelled, such as when he hired the Paradox Brothers to engage in a tag duel against Jaden and Cyrus. Why were they dueling the Paradox Brothers in the first place anyway? Could it be that Crowler hired a hitman to go after Jaden who kidnapped another student, luring Jaden into the abandoned dorm because they wanted to scare Jaden so badly that he would flee from Duel Academy? Not to mention also getting Jaden to go after the Duel Giant, who has beaten multiple Obelisk Blue students, rather than getting campus security on it, thereby intentionally putting a child in harm's way because you don't like them. Also, to add, they forged a love letter from Alexis to Jaden, 2 literal children, with the intention that Jaden would go to the girls' dorm after hours so that they could photograph him and get him expelled. All in all, multiple counts of harassment, solicitation of kidnapping and assault, using scare tactics on children, along with cleanly violating a whole list of standards and throwing standard 3 right out the window. Fucking hell. Chancellor Shepard is our final teaching staff member and is completely useless at best and a war criminal at worst. Throughout the series, he repeatedly and just blindly approves every decision the staff makes. He says he'll arrange some opponents for Jaden and Cyrus until Crowler takes over and sets up a blatantly unfair match. What does he do? Shrugs and says it'll be exciting and look good for the school. So let me go over Standard 2.1 very quickly. The school's governing body and/or proprietor monitors the effectiveness, the leadership, management, and delivery of the boarding and welfare provision in the school and takes appropriate action where necessary. When? In the Rise of the Shadow Riders arc, Jaden, Chaz, Zane, Alexis, and Bastion are all asked to take a spirit key to protect from the Shadow Riders. These guys basically constitute a terrorist organization. They attempt to awaken ancient evil spirits and use them for world domination. Not to mention they use black magic, steal souls, and occasionally horny for our main cast. Shepard fully knows about this as well, but fuck it, let's just give these keys that are the only thing standing between us and ancient evil deities to children instead of, I don't know, the military. The strongest duelist Seto Kaiba's millions can buy. To add, it's not like he doesn't even have contacts. He's the head of one of the most prestigious dueling schools on the planet. He's organized the Gen X tournament. He has contact with some of the most famous and strongest duelists in the world, or at least their managers. Also, all staff have to comply with policies and keep records in line with Appendix A and B. Things such as keeping records of bullying, having a disciplinary protocol in place, understanding safeguarding and whistleblowing, access to care and first aid, access to premises to people outside of the school, complaint procedure, risk assessment strategies for future events, which is safe to say none of this is happening. Sure, Shepard was surprised at the arrival of the Shadow Riders being so soon, but he knew at one point they were going to show up, and therefore should have had a plan in place for when they did. Overall, leadership gets a failing grade. I think it's a problem that you're more likely to get killed by a teacher or a hitman instead of the active volcano that you might just end up in while your friends fight the envoy of a god of darkness after your head teacher conscripted you to fight in a war with card games. I'll put this down in the report as DBS clearly stands for dumb bitch staff.
Alone, huh? Do cockroaches count?
What?
The dorm's got a few. And some rats.
Your teachers are going to get you killed, but before that happens, you might as well enjoy your time here. Best way to do that will probably be with some TV, have a shower, go for a swim, build a new deck. Good news, you can have all of that and more if you attend the Obelisk Blue Dorm, reserved only for the most talented and intelligent of duelists, and for those who went to a private school, which does raise some ethical concerns. Your Obelisk Blue Dorm will be like a castle, with a large open common area, luxurious dining rooms, classy decoration, and a private pool that will have Queen Elizabeth II rolling in her grave. But what would a castle be without your quarters, featuring a bedroom with a double bed, TV, couch, and a classy desk? And that won't be the only hardwood in this room once you see your walk-in closet and personal ensuite. Needless to say, the Obelisk Blue students are living the life of luxury and sliding right down that gifted child to depressed adult pipeline. Chaz even fast-tracked it and just became a depressed child instead. The raw yellow dorms, while less classy, are still fairly adequate, feeling more like a hotel room, that is to say, designed to have people living in them. The rooms are fairly open and breathable, with a TV, desk, drawers, and decently sized bed. While you may not be living like a royal, you will still have your own personal throne in your bedrooms. And if you're wondering why my voice tapered off there, it's because I felt like someone was tapping my chair, even though I'm the only one in my room. So if you're a ghost in here, feel free to say hi. The common areas are pleasant, fairly open, with a large dining hall, and the added bonus that you're not too far from campus. The Slifer Red dorm sucks cheeks. The rooms are the smallest out of the 3 dorms, however each room accommodates 3 students at capacity. I would also like to point out that Chaz moves into one of the regular rooms at one point, and moves what we can assume to be a king-sized bed into the room, and it takes up all of the floor space that wasn't already covered by a desk or kitchen area. If you have a king-sized bed, I want you to stand on that and imagine how small of a space that would be to share with 3 people. Despite how much it varies from shot to shot, the general idea is that 1/3 of the room is taken up by a bed, then a desk area on the other side of the room, and then the entranceway and mini kitchen at the end. All this being in complete violation of standard 4.5. In case you're wondering how you get clean in Slifer Red, there is an outhouse for all of your showering and other bathroom-based needs. I'm going to be generous and assume that there is 1 stall per room and these kids aren't living in worse conditions than literal prisoners. But regardless, this still violates standard 4.3. But one outhouse or not, you might want to avoid going out at night. You're located next to a sheer cliff drop into the ocean, with no light sources to guide you and no fences to stop you from falling. Staying inside isn't the best option either, considering the apparent cockroach and rat infestation, which is probably why Pharaoh is allowed to just hang around the dorms when Banner violating section 4.4, as clearly this building isn't being managed or maintained at all. Cockroaches and rats are also known carriers of disease, and considering the cramped living conditions of the dorm, disease must spread incredibly quickly and easily. Not to mention, the Slifer Red meal hall is in complete violation of all of standard 6. The welcome meal we're shown is mediocre at best, a small fish, plain rice, some curry or chili, and some fruit portions. This doesn't even remotely feel like a balanced meal. To add, I doubt that the kitchen area is well maintained and hygienic considering the infestations and the poor conditions of the rest of the dorm. I suppose you best start learning how to effectively prepare a rat. On top of all that, after the Shadow Riders, you don't even have a head of house anymore unless you count the cat. Moral of the story, study hard or you'll be shoved into the shed, which is one bad storm away from collapsing and killing everyone inside. This is going down as all this is going to do is encourage bullying and elitism.
He was dueling. Then he just plumb collapsed.
So the healthcare is as poor as the NHS and there is rampant bullying and elitism. Remember when I said we've returned to Miss Fontaine? As far as we're aware, she is the only school nurse and she 2 times as a PE teacher. We did have Mine the Thorn, but she only appeared once as part of the Dark Scorpions. She was also a criminal and not qualified to be a nurse in the slightest. So what happens when a student needs urgent medical attention but she's in a lesson? Either she has to ditch the lesson to help the kid, or they just have to wait until she's done. Like, damn, it kinda sucks that you got stabbed, but I need to finish this lesson. Just drink some water and try not to bleed out. I'll be with you in an hour. And knowing this school, they'd send a kid to find out who's doing the stabbing. In season 3, when everyone ends up on Tatooine, Chaz, Blair, Jaden, Adrian, and Axel all end up in the medical ward. Luckily, with only minor injuries that are solved within a day. That is except for Blair, who suffers one hell of a nasty scar and gets a fever, which Fontaine struggles to manage. Not only because it's a magical disease with no known cure, but because she has to fight off dual zombies at the same time. Since she had no additional support, Blair wasn't being taken care of, and as soon as Miss Fontaine was turned, the school has no way to treat 6 students. In fact, she didn't even have the medical supplies to treat Blair on hand. They got lucky because there was a submarine in the desert. So not only is the medical bay understaffed, but it's short on important supplies as well. The NHS isn't the gold standard. In terms of well-being, the Obelisk Blues and Raw Yellows have it pretty good. Can't say the same for the Reds though. There is constant bullying from basically everyone from both dorms towards the Slifers. Slifer Slacker, Slifer Slime, Slifer Sludge, all of these are nicknames shouted at any and all Slifer Red students. Man, this script is just forcing me to show off my lisp. The teachers do nothing to stop it, and in some cases actively participate in the harassment, such as Crowler and Bonaparte's constant attempts to offer all the Slifers. What makes it worse is for the Obelisks, bullying Slifers is essentially seen as a sport. In a throwaway line by Zane after Jaden challenges him to a duel, he mentions slumming. I may be inferring a lot from a random throwaway line, but to me this says that in some capacity, Obelisk Blue students will challenge the Reds to a duel which they have no shot at winning. No surprise, since Obelisk Blues use actual cohesive decks, meanwhile Reds generally use stuff like 7 coloured fish beatdown. Given it has a name, it's common enough that basically it's a tradition or a sport. Moral of the story, remember to study hard, because if you don't, it's completely okay for the better kids and teachers to bully and harass you. If you're mad about that, that is a skill issue. Health and well-being is a fail because let's just say my life points are going to hit 0 before I get any medical attention after the other students finish beating me up. While technically they don't violate any standards, the healthcare and well-being is so poor that it might as well just not exist, and that is grounds for a failing grade. This is going down in the reporters. Just because the NHS is a staple in the UK doesn't mean you have to copy everything they do.
I activate flipping the table!
If you were hoping that safeguarding was going to be at all a passing mark after going through the last 3 sections, you're going to be severely disappointed. The first question you probably have is, what is safeguarding? And luckily for you, I've had it drilled into my head from day 1 of teacher training. In short, safeguarding in schools involves everyone from your teachers to your caretakers, to that random supply you see every so often. If they overhear anything that indicates a student might be in danger or vulnerable to radicalization, then it's their duty to report it to the safeguarding team who investigate and resolve the issue. All of this to say, Duel Academy has no fucking clue what any of this is. Season 1 has been gutted already with the bullying, harassment, hitmen, and terrorists, but there is still more to talk about in regards to the Obelisk Blue student Belowski. We're first introduced to him in the episode The Little Belowski, where Crowler handily explains that Belowski's power to make people sleepy during duels was deemed too dangerous, so the only logical thing to do was to lock him in complete isolation in an underground facility. We're given no indication on how often he gets food, or how often he's seen by an adult, but judging by the state of his clothes, I'd say Crowler has been the only person visiting him in any capacity since he was put down there. Crowler also handily exposits that he uses him as a mini dual hitman against students that they don't like. Really, we're doing this again? This facility isn't easy to find either. To find it, you have to go to this random chicken coop out in the forest, then dig under this sand pit to find the hatch. Then you go down into the hatch and have to unlock a door using a keycard. There is no way anybody but a few select people know that he's down here, and given Duel Academy's propensity for covering up scandals, the students were probably told he was transferred. Good to know that if the volcano erupted, this child would just be left trapped completely hidden and no one would come looking for him because Duel Academy was too busy covering their asses. I could fail Duel Academy off that alone, but we still have 2 more seasons to go and we've barely scratched the surface on how little this school actually gives a fuck. Season 2 takes Jaden out of the equation pretty quickly when he loses to Aster, causing him to fall into a pretty heavy depression to the point where he's skipping multiple classes and no one knows where he is. To any other schools, this will raise enough red flags that you think you were suddenly transported to China, but apparently this isn't enough for the school to do anything about it or even really care. Jaden literally plans to sail out into the ocean and Duel Academy basically isn't even aware that he's missing. The only people who organize a search party for him are his friends, and half of them only do it because they want to prove a point that they're the better friend. While Jaden is missing, Sartorius is able to say he's coming to the island, show up, and walk around without anyone accompanying him because he likes to work alone. First off, I think Duel Academy is the only school on the planet that would let some rando turn up and just go wherever they want without supervision. Secondly, how is he allowed on the island in the first place? He just sent an email saying, "I'm coming over," showed up a couple hours later without going through anyone, and just does as he pleases? What happened to your campus security? Why is no one manning the docks? I swear you could just ship anyone to this island to go do whatever they want and no one would stop you. After all, this weird playboy got in, Titan got in without anyone stopping him, this reporter slipped onto the island undetected, the Jinzo duelist got in unopposed. Just, this private island is less secure than the fucking abandoned dorm residing on it. But maybe I'm overreacting, it's just one guy on an entire island, what could possibly go wrong? They started a cult and people are worshipping the light, and what a twist, Jaden and Chaz are the ones to fix it, none of the teachers, not the campus security, not even the literal military police you have on speed dial who are paid to fix these problems. Oh, and can it get worse? Yes, because Season 3 features Professor Thelonious Viper. Viper is a safeguarding nightmare, a former military general turned academic achievement officer or something to that effect. He has a reputation for taking schools and doubling their average grades, and how does he do it in this season? Everyone must wear biobands, which will monitor performance in duels. Anyone refuses is kicked out of the school. If you don't perform, then you're demoted and kicked from the school. There are no consent forms for this. Put the band on or get the fuck fuck out. And don't think complaining to Shepard will do anything. He's fully on board with the idea and thinks it'll be great for the school, like every stupid, dangerous, or blatantly unfair decision someone makes. Crowler even points out that they don't know what the biobands actually do, and Shepard's like, whatever. Now when it comes to the translated version, I can see why biobands doesn't really raise any alarm bells, since it's meant to track dueling energy, and it gives the same vibes as an exercise watch. Plus, that genuinely seems beneficial. If it can track duel data, such as your stress levels, students can see where they're getting stressed and if that correlates with them misplaying. But in the original Japanese, they're called death belts. Fucking death belts. If I bought a fitness tracker called a drowning cuff and then went for a swim, I honestly think I'd be to blame when I ended up dead. Adrian is apparently the only one who sees that the death belts might be a problem, and to test his theory, he hosts a duel tournament in the Obelisk Blue Dome, which results in an entire building of students knocking the fuck out. Then I suppose they all wake up and just assume they got tired. But what's especially concerning is it's entirely possible for these things to kill you, nearly turning Adrian into a mass murderer. Or I guess a mass manslaughterer, because he didn't really know it was going to happen, but he had a hunch. When Viper is outed as a problem, there is a line of 80 students to see Miss Fontaine, and only then does someone point out maybe this whole death belt scenario wasn't the best idea to blindly approve, but by then it's already too late. Adrian and Viper have got their titties out, and once again it's the students that are the ones to solve the problem before Viper jumps to his death and we go on a field trip to Tatooine, baby! After all of that, Jaden and the gang get home. Without Jesse, and Jaden still doesn't have any form of care plan and people just assume he'll get on fine. Let's just hope that's the case and he doesn't go looking for a dimensional rift that will kickstart a hilariously expensive butterfly effect that results in the death of multiple of his friends, Jaden becoming a genocidal maniac and encountering an intersex BDSM demon that was once human and actually Jaden's one protector from an ancient time. All of this to save Jesse and create the unification of their friendship being Rainbow Neos. Look, fellas, if your friendship looks like this and even their evil ex is questioning whether you're more than just besties, I think you might just be gay. Safeguarding gets a failing grade because it doesn't fucking exist. This is going down in the report as nothing. I care about writing a joke here as much as they care about the safety of their students. Speaking of which...
I'm better than good, and I'll prove it, not just by scaring this someone, but by banishing him to the Shadow Realm.
And for our final category, safety. Do I really need to say anything at this point? With everything I have said to you, do I really need to bring up the multitudes of standards this school has refused to acknowledge? I could have the sword of Damocles dangling above my head right now and I would still feel safer than if I was attending Duel Academy. Campus security exists. I don't know what they do considering we had a Monster of the Week scenario for most of Season 1 and they just didn't do anything. Titan? Jaden sorted it. Duel Giant? Jaden sorted it. Stolen cards? Jaden sorted it. What are we paying this security for? Not to mention, the students can just go anywhere they want at any time of day. Zane regularly hangs out at the docks at night with Alexis and her janky 2D walk cycle. Better hope one of them doesn't fall in on accident. If only we had some people whose jobs it was to keep students safe and make sure they weren't in dangerous areas after hours. On the topic of dangerous areas, the abandoned dorm is completely prohibited and looks like it could crumble at any second, but the most security that it has in place is a busted old fence and a sign that says, "Please stay out." Unfortunately, this sign has proved ineffective multiple times since people have just been coming and going as they please constantly. Titan and Banner just did whatever they wanted and no one knew. Banner even made an entire lab for fuck's sake. But let's bump it up a bit and go from danger that you voluntarily walk into all the way to dangerous because you decided to go to this academy. Monkey See Monkey Duel is the episode that introduces us to Wheeler, a dueling monkey that is being experimented on in an underground lab. We only find out about his existence because he kidnaps an Obelisk Blue girl and puts her on a branch dangling over a cliff. I've brought it up several times before as well, but the academy is located on an island with an active volcano, as evidenced by the giant cloud of smoke when we first see it. Now, I'm sure the academy has plans in place in case the mountain explodes, but luckily, if you're in class you won't be needing them, as you'll be at the perfect distance to be consumed in a cloud of scorching hot ashes as the building collapses around you. The most likely to survive will probably be the Red Dorm just because of the distance. Fun Yu-Gi-Oh! Trivia, the Ascend archetype is actually the end result of what happened after Duel Academy's volcano erupted. Now, I'm sure in the real world, if your school was built on an ancient burial ground for world-ending demons, you'd probably roll your eyes and think, yeah, right. In this case, it is a big deal because this is a case where dark magic and world-ending demons are a thing that have, can, and will just show up. Ofsted don't have any legislation on this, but I think if there was some, it would be in big bold letters and it would likely read, "Don't build a school on top of an ancient burial ground for world-ending demons." But that's just a hunch. This gets a failing grade and goes down as, I'm taking my chances with the tides. All in all, if you find yourself transported to the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX with the opportunity to attend Duel Academy, don't. You'll probably get killed by demons, duel monsters, demolition crews, and even things that don't start with the letter D, such as a military general, a volcano, or your most likely option, your fucking teachers. So what happens now? At best they're getting away with a fine as they're a privately owned school which Kaiba can definitely pay off with his endless sums of cash. At worst, the school is being taken by boss fex to be fixed. Now, you can't just close down a school and displace thousands of kids. That would obliterate the local school population, especially considering it is a specialized school. If it was a school for pro athletes, you couldn't just close it and put them all in a regular school because what they learn is completely different. What would likely happen is the students would learn remotely like we did in Ye Olde 2020. It horrifies me to think that was nearly 6 years ago. Eventually, there would be a new building established that they could attend and get on with their education. Well, that's my report done. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go murder a card game.